Hello, viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews and Updates. And today I am going to be reviewing Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Anatomy of a Fall, and The Holdovers, given that um, award season starting to heat up. Uh, I apologize. I did not do a video through the entirety of November. As you can see in the background, I moved again. I moved recently to this nice new apartment. It's much more bigger and spacious, and I love it. Of course, I thank the previous place I lived in for a year and a half, but I'm really enjoying it here. And then I got sick. So I did not have the energy to do a video because I wanted to be, cheery. And so now I'm recovered. I still have some sniffles here and there and blood in my nose, but I should be fine through this video. So anyway, let's start with Oppenheimer. I know that it came out in July, and I could have reviewed it then, but it had a home video release recently, although it sold out, but which is a great thing. I'll get to that soon, that point later. But yeah, I figured, it's also good for think I also wanted to think it's good that I review Oppenheimer alongside Killers of the Flower Moon. I'll get to reasons why when I get to Killers of the Flower Moon, of course. But let's just let's just okay. Oppenheimer, Christopher Nolan's uh, uh, World War II and post World War II epic. Let's start off talking about the performances. The performances are fantastic. Bear with me here. I'm going to give a laundry list. First things first, I don't think anyone could have played J. Robert Oppenheimer other than Cillian Murphy. The way he uses his eyes is just so chilling. Now, granted, there's still other contenders that I have yet to see, but I believe that Cillian Murphy should win the Oscar for Best Lead Actor. The portrayal of ambition, curiosity, scholarly intelligence, and complicated regret all together takes such a degree of difficulty. Robert Downey Jr. is also amazing. The snarkiness he's known for in his straight man roles fits perfectly with the antagonist character of Strauss. And he's not played as like a flat out villain at first. He seems sort of like an ally at first, but I mean, if you do research, you probably know that he wasn't exactly the most beneficial person in Oppenheimer's life. Emily Blunt is one of the most talented actresses in the business right now. Her performance as Kitty Oppenheimer I think is really, really good. There have been some criticisms about her character being underwritten, and similar criticisms have been said about Florence Pugh's character, Jean Tatlock. I would disagree. I think both women play a key role in Oppenheimer's political involvements. I think the role of Kitty is much more difficult than given credit for. The Jean Tatlock character, played by Florence Pugh, is the one who opens Oppenheimer up to left wing ideologies and ultimately the foundations for what will go into his creations for the bomb. Kitty, on the other hand, is the one who has to be on Oppenheimer's side when he faces the consequences for engaging in politics that that Albert Einstein, the character Albert Einstein, played by really well by Bill Conti, I loved his presence on screen, warned against, and of course the bombing. Jason Clarke is great. I really like when I seeing Jason Clarke and things. I have not yet watched William Friedkin's final movie, the Caine Mutiny Court Martial, but uh, I'm I'm very curious to watch it because, Friedkin's a master and I love Jason Clarke. Um, I love seeing actors I haven't seen in quite some time uh, to have some time to shine. Yes, the rhyme was intended. I would be lying if I said it wasn't. Josh Peck, of course. Dane DeHaan is an actor who I think is genuinely talented but was misused a lot in the 2010s, and I enjoyed him here. Alden Ehrenreich is someone I missed seeing on screen. Uh, I always thought he was a really talented actor. I mean, Hail Caesar, Blue Jasmine. Olivia Thirlby, who is Juno's best friend, and Juno doesn't speak much, but it was nice to see her face again. I know that she was on that show Goliath. I've never watched full episodes, but my brother and his cousin used to watch it, and I would see some bits and pieces. And then bring on the Josh Hartnett songs. I quite like Josh Hartnett in this too. Oh, and I always like seeing David Krumholtz in things. He has a good presence. I could go on and on about the acting ensemble here. Let's just move on to the historical significance and contemporary relevance. While Oppenheimer is obviously a period piece set in the World War II area and the McCarthyism era, the narrative unfolds in a timely manner. Nolan implies through the dialogue that with rising technology, a mass destruction event could very well happen again if such tools fall into the wrong hands. Quite a few reviewers have made parallels to today's rise of AI and ChatGPT, and those connections are 100% valid. And in one interview, Christopher Nolan pointed out a commonality between the building of the atomic bomb and the creation of AI. He stated that in both scenarios, these inventions were not designed by guys who had no idea what they were doing and thought it would be cool to play with toys. No, they knew going into it that it would be dangerous. And people who work in AI are pretty serious when they say that damage could occur when not handled or regulated properly. And Nolan added that this is the case with any form of power, really. And the haunting final line of the film, I don't want to say what it is for those who haven't seen it. Well, most people who watching this probably have already, but just the way it sums up, it just the the haunting final line in the film is so resonant in the way it sums this thesis up. Dan Bayer from the Next Best Picture podcast brought up something interesting in the review of it. He stated how history for the longest time has been taught in a way where they're heroes and victors in adversity, but this film challenges that idea by showing how conflicted of a character J. Robert Oppenheimer was. And overall, I think this is a movie that I think will go down in history as a new American classic for being both an incredible technical achievement and a reflection slash reckoning with history. And as far as awards prospects, it is definitely a lock for several Oscar nominations and a couple wins. If I were to give it at least one Oscar, I would say Cillian Murphy for Best Actor, as I alluded to earlier. I would not mind at all seeing Robert Downey Jr. getting a career win for this because he's genuinely incredible here. Um, I I really, as it's just I always loved him as an actor. Even I love even his 90s rom-coms. He's just awesome. He has just such great delivery and physicality. Jennifer Lame is one of the best editors we have working in the film industry today. She edited Nolan's previous film Tenet, and she edited Hereditary. And earlier this month, Christopher Nolan won the Federation of American Scientists Public Service Award, and I honestly think that is an even greater accomplishment than winning a Best Director Oscar. I'm almost certain Oppenheimer will, I think it even is playing still in some theaters, will be re-released in IMAX again when the Oscar noms are announced. And it's it's just really such amazing experience on the IMAX screen. And the it was released on physical media recently, as I said earlier, and like the copies were sold out, like the 4K copies. And as Christopher Nolan says, um, like he encourages us to get the 4K and physical release so that no evil streamer can take it away from us. Yep. Hashtag save physical media. Moving on to another um uh work from a master, Killers of the Flower Moon, directed by Martin Scorsese. Now, it's interesting how both Oppenheimer and Killers of the Flower Moon are both reckonings with historical tragedies. Both films provide multifaceted examinations of the people who had responsibility in these tragedies. Although Killers of the Flower Moon has gotten mostly glorious praise, there has been some criticism about Lily Gladstone and the Osage being sidelined and whether or not Martin Scorsese was the appropriate person to tell the story given that he is an old white guy. And Christopher Coate, I believe that's his name, one of the Osage language consultants, stated at the premiere, as an Osage, I really wanted this to be from the perspective of Molly and what her family experienced, but I think it would take an Osage to do that. Martin Scorsese, not being Osage, I think he did a great job representing our people, but this history is being told from the perspective of Ernest Burkhart. Now, Lily Gladstone does not discredit what Chris Coates says. She says, Chris and I had that exact conversation in his living room. Marty is a titan, but he's no bigger than history. He's a major shaper of it, though. It's the tricky nature of a story like this. You have more representation, but coming from somebody who's not from the community. So you always have to look at it with a different angle. And there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to be very aware of the film that you're watching and what lens it was made through. On that note, I think it was incredibly fair of Lily Gladstone to issue sort of a trigger warning to Native American watchers, saying that if they think they'll be triggered by any traumas depicted, that it's okay to be, and they don't have to watch the movie right away. They can watch it when they're ready. And yeah, I think what she said in regards to what Christopher Coates said was was a very educated and um, fair response. Now, here's what I have to say about those criticisms. Notwithstanding some parts where she's absent, Molly is pretty much in most of the movie. So I am in full support of her decision to run in lead actress other than supporting actress. And that's why it really pissed me off um, when pundits are claiming that she threw a win away because she would have won in supporting. First of all, you do not know that. Not with Danielle Brooks, Taraji P. Henson, and Divine Joy Randolph, or even Juliette Binoche for the taste of things in the mix. Taraji P. Henson, Danielle Brooks for Color Purple, of course, and Divine Joy Randolph for the Holdovers, which I'll get to later. Anyway, the Native Americans do get a good chunk of screen time. Is it as much as DiCaprio or De Niro? No, but it's still a very good amount. And nevertheless, the point I want to make is that you're not supposed to like the white people in this movie. Screen time, I don't really equate to point of view necessarily in the sense that we're supposed to root for them. Not at all. In fact, Scorsese and co screenwriter Eric Roth are very critical of their decisions as destruction is depicted. Scorsese did a lot of consulting with Osage in order to try to depict their history as honorably and accurately as he could. And Scorsese communicated with the family, and they mentioned that even with everything that occurred, Molly and Ernest did love each other. And what makes this movie so raw is how Scorsese and Roth depict the contradictions in their marriage. Ernest loves her, but he also manipulates her and slowly poisons her. Granted, Ernest makes a lot of these choices because he's heavily persuaded by his his bigoted uncle, uh, William Hale. This, however, does not at all excuse Ernest for his actions because a lot of his motivation is based on money hunger. And on the next Best Picture podcast, um, sorry, I just got a hint of a sniffle. Daniel Howitt pointed out that in the scenes where Lily Gladstone is absent, we still feel her presence. The FBI investigations and the court case takes place on behalf of Molly's agency because she was the one who spoke up. She is the facilitator. She's probably my favorite female character in a Martin Scorsese film that I've seen. Um, okay, so let's talk about Lily Gladstone and some other Native American performers here. I know that some of us take for granted that Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro are fantastic actors, and both are truly giving some of their best work here. And I don't mean to regurgitate what others have said, but I would be lying if I was not in unison stating that Lily Gladstone is the narrative heart and soul. And a performance like hers takes such a degree of difficulty with body language and facial expression, particularly with the eyes. You could see frustration, suspicion, and heartbreak. And that's why I think it's kind of ironic how after this recording, see, I wrote the note, a lot of the big chunk of the notes of this review before the Gotham Awards and the before the Gotham Awards and New York Film Critics Circle, and the Gotham Awards awarded um, Lily Gladstone best lead performance for The Unknown Country, not for Killers of the Flower Moon, but for another movie she was in. But we all secretly know was secret. We all know that it was probably secretly for Killers of the Flower Moon because they chose not to submit at the Gothams, and then Killers of the Flower Moon at also at the New York Film Critics Circle, in addition to Best Film, won Best Lead Actress Lily Gladstone, and those saying that she should have run in supporting now sort of had to have to change their minds a bit since she's racking up some critics lead actress prizes, and could I think she does have a really good chance of winning the Oscar. I really do. I mean, uh, also also Emma Stone for Poor Things, which I can't wait to see, and Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall, which I'll get to very shortly. Uh, anyway, there's a tight knit bond between the sisters. My mom said that the men, particularly Robert De Niro, didn't like how close the women were with each other because they knew that it would be an obstacle to them getting the head rights. Knowing how close the ladies were makes the deaths of all her family members even more devastating. That's not a spoiler because it's history. This emotional impact is a testament to both the writing and Lily Gladstone's performance. The actresses who played the sisters are always really good, particularly Cara Jade Myers, who played Anna. Obviously, screen time does not equate to quality or emotional impact of a character, but for the smaller relatively amount of time that Cara Jade Myers is on screen, she's just dynamite. Cara Jade Myers has a really fascinating and inspiring story. She teaches film and acting classes to youth on reservations. And similar to Lily Gladstone, she was going to quit acting, but decided not to give up and take such a special opportunity. And I really hope Cara Jade Myers gets cast in more movies after this. I also really like Tantu Cardinal, the actress who played the mother. She is a native actress who has a lot of who's had quite a lot of screen credits, including Dances with Wolves and Smoke Signals and Legends of the Fall, Wind River. And Tantu Cardinals. Okay, this is sort of a spoiler alert, but again, all right. Okay, so Tangi Cardinal's scene with the elders is so heartbreaking and chilling. Like when she dies and then an elder comes and takes her. It's on the one hand, it's beautiful because you see the connectivity with nature and the ancestors, but at the same time, you know how upsetting it is for Molly to lose the people that she loves. And William Bellew, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, who played Henry Roan, I think, spoiler over by the way, Molly's first husband, gives a really heartbreaking performance. We see through his character how Native Americans face racial profiling similar to African Americans. Obviously, Killers of the Flower Moon does not really touch on Black America, does not touch on Black America much, or if at all. But I don't think that Scorsese and Roth reference the Tulsa Race Massacre just randomly. I do think that they're implying some parallels by doing that. All that said, it would be interesting to see how all of these Native American actors' careers rise from here, as I sort of brought up earlier. Now, okay, spoiler over. Uh, oh wait, spoiler. I'm sorry, spoiler alert, because I'm about to talk about the ending of Killers of the Flower Moon, and then I'll put up this spoiler over post-it when I'm done talking about the ending. Many interpret the true crime play at the end to be Martin Scorsese's way of acknowledging his own limitations of telling the story of the Osage murders as a non-Indigenous person. That is clearly part of it. I don't think Scorsese is strictly referring to himself here, but those who tell history. For the longest time, just like this radio show, the history of Native Americans has been told through the eyes of white men. I believe Hamilton touched on this a little bit with the idea that history books are written by the victors. I brought up earlier with Oppenheimer how Oppenheimer sort of deconstructing the idea of having heroes in wars. And with that in mind, history has been fabricated while being passed down throughout the years. While looking at the history of indigenous people, for instance, Christopher Columbus did not actually discover America and was involved in the decimation of indigenous people, not to mention the horrific raping of women. Likewise, after the first Thanksgiving, the Native Americans were pushed off their land. Details like that are left out, and do not get me started on the stupid critical race theory bullshit and the changing of curriculums down south. Now, to be fair, the altering / modification of history is not a new thing. It has been done for a long time in a way that is comfortable for people. History is ugly and complicated. And I will say that I do believe that when teaching history to young children, that they should be taught what is age appropriate, obviously when they're old enough. I would say do not shy away from different angles, but when they are first learning, just give simple, vague facts that are easy to process and understand. It's sort of a cliche by now to say that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it, but it's true. I think with the very last shot of contemporary Osage dancing together, Scorsese and cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto, as well as the actors in the scene, are communicating how, in spite of all the devastating hardship, there is still resilience and coming together as a community. The sad truth is that Native Americans still face obstacles today, but steady progress is always being made, and their representation in Killers of the Flower Moon opens the door for more of such in the mainstream media. Similar to Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon will go down in history as an important piece of cinema for its technical merit and what it has to say about America then as well as America today. Jeff Zhang on Twitter, or X, I'm still calling it Twitter because X is such a stupid name, said something very interesting and quite sad. He says, Hollywood silencing voices calling out genocide when 3 of its biggest award season films this year are Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and Zone of Interest is effing insane to me. Just something to think about. Now, Zone of Interest, I've yet to see it, but Sandra Hüller's in it. And let's transition to talking about Anatomy of a Fall. It's directed by Justine Triet, screenplay by Justine Triet and her partner Arthur Harari. When Sandra's husband Samuel dies by falling out the window, an investigation occurs, and then she is, of course, placed on trial for murder. This film won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. It was not France's selection for the International Film Oscar, but it is still eligible for Best Picture, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, Best Lead Actress, etc. Sandra Hüller, who happens to also be in the Grand Prix winner Zone of Interest, as I said, uh, she gives an amazing performance as the lead. And the kid actor who plays the visually impaired son, Milo Machado Graner, is outstanding. He practically steals the show from Sandra Hüller. And he has an integral emotional component to the narrative because he's really the only real witness that could testify, even though he did not see the actual death take place. And because he found his dad on the ground when coming back from walking the dog Snoop. And obviously, there are limitations to that due to his partial blindness. And by the way, the dog is beautiful and does some of the best dog acting I've ever seen. Now, I do not want to spoil the specific details, but the dog really plays a crucial part in the narrative, and especially tying in with the son's arc. In addition to winning the Palme d'Or, Anatomy of a Fall also won the Palme d'Or, deservedly so. I'll return to what I have to say about the son in a little bit. The purpose of the story is not to build up to a big reveal. Rather, it's far more interested in being a thought-provoking character study about the fickleness of perception and the complexity of human beings. Now, I'm going to give some mild spoiler alert, but I'm saying that with asterisks because it's like, to quote Roger Ebert, it's not what it's about, it's how it's about it. Now, the genius of the screenplay is the ambiguity. And spoiler alert, sort of, we do not know if Sandra is innocent or guilty. Even if you know going into it that there are no easy answers. Like I said, just like what Roger Ebert said, it's not what it's about, it's how it's about it. Now, when Sandra Hüller signed on to the role, she asked Justine Triet if the character is innocent or guilty, to which Triet refused to answer. Triet told Hüller that she must act as if her character is coming for a place where she truly believes that she's innocent. Not only is that brilliant directing, but that only highlights why Sandra Hüller's performance is one to be studied, because that must have taken such a high degree of difficulty. I think it is so hilarious that Neon has a site called DidSheDoIt.com where people can vote yes or no as to whether or not she killed her husband. There was even a billboard asking, "Did she do it?" What I love about the screenplay is that you can make the argument for her killing her husband or not killing her husband, and either assessment would be completely valid based on what information is given to us in the narrative. And that's why I think it deserves to be nominated not only for Sandra Hüller and Milo Machado Graner, but also Best Original Screenplay and Best Editing. The details about what happened or what didn't happen is a testament to how the film is carefully edited by Lawrence Senechal. And I believe it at the European Film Awards, it won editing, deservedly so. And I think if we found out the absolute truth of what had happened, I think that would have undermined the rich story we got. Anatomy of a Fall is a masterclass in how to play around with ambiguity without having the story feel empty or lacking. And so, okay, that's sort of like spoiler over. When Justine Triet and Arthur Harari were writing this, it was prior to the Me Too movement. And I do not think they were trying to base the story off of any particular true crime court case. However, from my understanding at the Cannes Film Festival, Triet brought up the issues that she has with the French court system. Some have wondered if this was part of the reason why Anatomy of a Fall was not submitted by France, as the international feature submission. I think Justine Triet's criticisms with the French court system are very much exemplified in the form of the prosecuting attorney in this film, who was such an asshole. And it is through the court scenes where Triet and Harari ask, what is fact? What is perception? What is justice? I don't think it is a mere coincidence that the son is visually impaired. I think Triet and Harari are playing around with the idea that justice is blind. And yeah, that's what I have to say about Anatomy of a Fall. Now let's move on to the final film I will be reviewing, and that is The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne and written by David Hemmingson. At Barton Academy, an all-boys boarding prep school in Massachusetts, a cynical sourpuss history teacher named Paul Hunnam, um, uh, played by Paul Giamatti, is tasked with staying on campus with a group of boys who can't go home for the holidays. One of them is an intelligent but troublesome boy named Angus Tully, played by Dominic Sessa, who is such an incredible discovery. He can't be home for the holidays because his mother prioritized her honeymoon with her new husband. Angus's behavior has previously gotten him kicked out of other schools. Also staying at the school for the holiday break is the head cook Mary, played wonderfully by Divine Joy Randolph. She is grieving the loss of her son, who died in the Vietnam War, and something happens where the other boys leave campus, and the trio of Paul, Mary, and Angus, quad if you want to count the friendly janitor, are stuck with each other. All these performances are wonderful. The character of Paul was written with Paul Giamatti in mind, and that makes sense because the way he delivers his lines of snarky cynicism is just done so brilliantly. It is a big part of what keeps you engaged with this character, even if he's not the most likable at first. Divine Joy Randolph comes from a comedy background, and she adds a highly realistic combination of sassiness and sadness to her character. She also serves as the grounding voice of reason. Dominic Sessa brings so much maturity to a character that obviously still has so much learning and growing up to do. I saw this post stating that his performance actually feels like one given from an actor from the 70s rather than just being a Gen Zer doing cosplay. That sums up a lot of what I'm trying to say here. I'm very much looking forward to seeing whatever acting Dominic Sessa does next, along with Divine Joy Randolph. And what's so crazy is that this is Dominic Sessa's first movie role, and you would think that his performance alone, that he's been acting for movies for a little bit now. Now, they found Dominic Sessa at Deerfield Academy, the school in which they shot this. In an interview, Dominic Sessa mentioned that Alexander Payne did have him watch some 70s films, and it was sort of like film school in a way. And while on the subject of 70s vibes, similar to Licorice Pizza 2 years prior, The Holdovers looks and feels like something that could have been made in the 70s. It also reminded me of dramedies from the 90s and 2000s that are not made as much today. One film in particular I thought about was The Day Trippers from 1996 or 1997, directed by Greg Mottola. Bear with me here. The Day Trippers, with Hope Davis, and it's a road trip movie with Hope Davis, Liev Schreiber, and Parker Posey. Stanley Tucci's also in it. It's a pretty good movie. It's on HBO Max. So there. Back to the 70s aspects, there's a really funny scene where Paul Giamatti and Divine Joy Randolph's characters are watching the Newlywed Game, which is a reality show from the time, and then Divine Joy Randolph's character says, "These two are gonna get divorced." Although it's a film that takes place in the 70s, the emotional arcs of the characters are resonant no matter the era, because personal issues like insecurity, loneliness, and the needs for love and connection are universal matters for all individuals. And in in a darkly comedic way, The Holdover shows us how there is more complexity to people than what meets the eye. We do not know what personal issues other people are going through until we ask them or if they tell us. I love how this film is touching but also maintains a level of biting, snarky cynicism. The screenplay by David Hemmingson is so rich and compelling. While I'm not sure if it was intentional, the story has some interesting things to say about education. When we meet Paul Giamatti's character, he claims that he wants to discipline students and to teach and prepare them for the harsh realities of life. Obviously, that is a facade for the pain Paul's character is feeling inside, but I don't want to spoil specifically what that is for those who haven't seen the movie yet. More importantly, the character of Paul has some learning to do as well in terms of being vulnerable and opening himself up emotionally to other people, as does Mary the cook. The time that Angus has during the holiday break is probably one of the, if not the most educational experience he has in his life. And education is not just for taking tests, it's learning about each other as humans and how to connect. Uh, uh, and he teaches history, and to connect this with Killers of the Flower Moon, there's a line in the Holdovers where he says, history is not just about studying the past, it's about understanding our present. And that could apply to them learning about the history of themselves as characters. And Brennan Cassidy brought up on the In Session Film Podcast review how smart it was to have each member of the trio be of a different generation. We got the young with Angus, the 30 or 40 something adults with Mary, and the elderly with Paul. This shows us how learning is not just something we do in school as young individuals. It is a lifelong process. And that will do it for this installment of reviews. I hope I hope to see The Boy and the Heron and Poor Things when they come out, and I also recently saw May December, and so I should be reviewing 3 of those movies in another video soon. And I really enjoyed um, talking about these movies with you. And yeah, that will thank you for watching. If you want to see more of my reviews and poetry related stuff, click the like button and subscribe. The links to my socials are in the description below. Happy December, everybody. Goodbye for now.